Imagine you have just spent, a small fortune, let's say 150,000 rupees, and you've installed these state-of-the-art solar panels right on top of your roof.
Right.
And it is a blisteringly hot, completely cloudless afternoon. So your roof is practically humming. It's generating enough electricity to power your entire house and probably then some.
Yeah, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Exactly. But then a transformer blows a few streets over and the entire city power grid just goes down.
Happens all the time.
Right. And you might think, well, no problem. I have my own personal power plant right above my head. But guess what? Your television snaps off.
Yeah.
The ceiling fans, they just spin to a halt. You are sitting in the dark, sweating, literally just like everyone else on your street.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating for people.
Today, we are going to decode exactly why that happens. Because by doing this, you are essentially turning your house into a node on this massive, highly complex public network. And well, that comes with some astonishing hidden rules.
It really is the ultimate paradox of modern renewable energy, honestly. We're all sold this dream of absolute independence, right?
Oh, totally. Going off the grid.
Right, this idea that you are severing ties with the utility company for good. But the reality, especially for the overwhelming majority of residential installations, is that you are actually binding yourself to the utility company in a far deeper, far more intricate way than you ever were before.
Yeah.
And that relationship, it's governed by, physics, incredibly strict safety regulations, and some really complex financial agreements.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for today's deep dive is to take a magnifying glass to an incredibly detailed official document that outlines the government of India's flagship rooftop solar program.
Yeah.
It is called the PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, which essentially translates to the free electricity scheme.
Right.
But we are looking at this massive national initiative through a hyper-specific, localized lens today. We're looking at the Union Territory of Puducherry.
Yeah, and the source material we have for this is just fascinating because it strips away all the glossy marketing brochures.
The sales pitches.
Exactly. It is essentially a masterclass in the gritty reality of adopting solar power. It breaks down the exact subsidies, the underlying technical requirements, and this frankly exhausting step-by-step installation process.
There's a lot of steps.
It is. And it covers the core financial philosophies of solar ownership, focusing entirely on a standard 3-kilowatt residential system. Basically, it pulls back the curtain on everything a homeowner in Puducherry actually needs to know before they sign on the dotted line.
So we are going to figure out if turning your roof into a mini power plant is an absolute financial masterstroke, or if it is just a bureaucratic and logistical nightmare that's just waiting to happen.
Because it really can be either, depending on how you approach it.
Right. Because whenever a government uses a phrase like free electricity, you just have to know there are spreadsheets, complex forms, and very specific rules standing between you and that magical $0 bill.
Absolutely.
So I want to start right where the document starts, which is the economics.
Yeah.
Because the financial architecture of this scheme in Puducherry is what makes it such an incredible case study.
Yeah, the numbers here are really what drive the entire conversation. To really grasp the impact of this scheme, we first have to establish the baseline reality of the solar market itself.
Okay.
According to the document, if a homeowner in Puducherry wants to install a standard 3-kilowatt rooftop system, they are looking at a total market price ranging anywhere from, say, 1.8 lakh to 2.2 lakh rupees.
Wow, okay.
And that price includes everything. It's the solar panels, the inverter, the heavy-duty mounting structures for the roof, the wiring, and obviously all the labor for the installation.
That is a massive chunk of change. If we are talking about 1.8 to 2.2 lakh rupees, that is not some casual weekend purchase you just make on a whim.
Not at all.
For a vast majority of middle-class households, that is a major, carefully considered infrastructure investment. You're probably dipping into your life savings or even taking out a specific loan for it. It's a really high barrier to entry.
And that high barrier to entry has historically been the single biggest bottleneck for solar adoption across the board.
Right.
But this is exactly where the PM Surya Ghar scheme intervenes, and it attempts to completely alter that math. Under this scheme, the central government provides a very, very substantial direct subsidy to the consumer. For a standard 3-kilowatt system, that central subsidy is capped at a maximum of 78,000 rupees.
Okay, but I actually noticed something really interesting in the fine print about that cap.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the document makes it very clear that even if you get super ambitious, let's say you have a huge house and you decide to install a 4-kilowatt or even a 5-kilowatt system, that central subsidy is hard capped at the 3-kilowatt rate.
That's right.
You are permanently locked in at that 78,000 rupees. You don't get a single extra rupee from the center just because you put more panels on your roof past that specific threshold. Why on earth would they design it like that?
Well, it really comes down to allocating public funds for maximum societal impact.
Yep.
The central government has clearly calculated that a 3-kilowatt system is the optimal, the sweet spot to offset the energy footprint of a typical, comfortable, middle-class Indian household.
Ah, I see.
Their goal isn't to subsidize massive estates running, central air conditioning in every single room. Their goal is to lift the basic utility burden off the average family. So by capping the subsidy at 3 kilowatts, they can spread that limited financial pool across millions of more homes rather than heavily subsidizing a few incredibly wealthy ones.
That makes a lot of sense from a purely policy perspective. But here is where the story gets hyper-localized and, frankly, just incredible for the residents of the specific region.
Yeah, this is the best part.
Puducherry is uniquely positioned because the Union Territory government offers an additional state-level subsidy right on top of the central one. According to the text, the Puducherry government is throwing in an extra 30,000 rupees specifically for these eligible 3-kilowatt systems.
This is the dual subsidy advantage, and I'm telling you, it completely shifts the economic center of gravity for the homeowner.
It really does.
If we just run those numbers, you're getting 78,000 rupees from the central government plus 30,000 rupees from the Puducherry government. That is a combined guaranteed subsidy of 1,008,000 rupees.
Over lakh.
Over a lakh in pure financial assistance injected directly into your project.
So let's apply that to the real-world costs the document outlined earlier. If you find a vendor and the total installation cost comes in at the lower end of that estimate, say 1.8 lakh rupees.
Okay.
You subtract that massive 1,008,000 rupee subsidy, and the homeowner's net out-of-pocket contribution drops to just 72,000 rupees.
Which is why.
It is. And even if you have a really complicated roof and you hit the absolute highest end of the estimate at 2.2 lakh, your final cost is still only around 1.1 lakh. You're effectively purchasing a state-of-the-art power generation facility for your home at less than half of its actual market value.
It's a wildly aggressive financial incentive. But, to understand if that 72,000 to 1.1 lakh rupee investment is actually worth it for you, we have to look at what that 3-kilowatt system physically produces on a daily basis.
Right, because it's not just a decoration.
Exactly. And the document provides very specific generation estimates tailored to the actual geographical and solar realities of Puducherry. It states that a 3-kilowatt system there will reliably generate about 12 to 15 units of electricity every single day.
So if we extrapolate that out, 12 to 15 units a day translates to roughly 360 to 450 units a month. Annually, we are talking about something like 4,300 to 5,400 units of electricity. And for you, the listener, trying to contextualize those numbers, if you were generating up to 450 units a month, that is going to cover the vast majority of a standard household's usage.
Easily.
The document actually translates this into fiat currency, estimating that this generation offsets a monthly electricity bill by 2,000 to 4,000 rupees.
And over the course of a year, that is an annual retained savings of 25,000 to 45,000 rupees.
That's real money.
It's cash that previously just vanished into the utility company's coffers, and now it's remaining in your household budget. The system is an asset that actively pays you back by systematically erasing what is probably your largest recurring utility expense.
Wait, hold on, though. I am looking at how the document calculates the return on investment based on those savings, and there is a glaring variance that I really need you to explain.
Oh, the payback period.
Yes. Early on in the text, when they're discussing the broad financial benefits, it states that after these subsidies are applied, the typical payback period for the homeowner is around 3 to 5 years.
Right.
But then, literally a few pages later, there is this neatly formatted project overview summary table, and it boldly claims the payback period is 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did they just make a typo? Or is there a genuine reason why the timeline suddenly shrank by 2 full years? Because a 2-year payback is a wildly different financial proposition than a 5-year payback.
I know it looks confusing, but there is no typo. It actually highlights a really crucial lesson about solar economics. The payback period is not some fixed law of physics.
Okay.
It is a highly dynamic, individualized equation that relies heavily on two very moving targets. The first target is your specific installation cost, like we just discussed, that 1.8 lakh versus 2.2 lakh range.
Right.
If you manage to secure a really straightforward installation at 1.8 lakh, your net cost is only 72,000 rupees.
Which is the dream scenario.
Exactly. But if your roof requires this complex, custom-built, elevated mounting structure just to avoid some shadows, or if you insist on buying premium imported solar panels, you will hit that 2.2 lakh mark. That makes your net cost 1.1 lakh. It's just simple math. The deeper the financial hole you dig at the very beginning, the longer it takes your monthly savings to fill it back up.
So the higher initial cost naturally drags you toward that 5-year end of the spectrum.
Precisely.
Okay, so the upfront cost dictates the size of the mountain you have to climb.
Mm-hmm.
What is the second moving target?
Well, the second variable is entirely behavioral. It depends heavily on your household's actual daytime electricity consumption habits, combined with the nuances of your local electricity tariff structure.
Interesting. How so?
Let's look at a household that consumes a massive amount of power during the daylight hours. Maybe someone works from home and runs an air conditioner all afternoon, or maybe a large family does all their heavy laundry, ironing, and water pumping while the sun is highest in the sky. In that scenario, the household is directly consuming the solar power at the exact moment it is being generated by the roof. They are intercepting those units before they ever leave the house, which instantly shunks their bill.
Contrast that with, say, a family where both parents work at an office, the kids are at school, and the house is practically empty and powered down from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Exactly. Their panels are generating peak power, but nobody is home to actually use it.
Right.
In that empty house scenario, the savings rely entirely on the mechanics of exporting that power to the grid. And that brings in utility regulations that can sometimes be a bit less favorable than direct consumption. Plus, we have to consider tiered tariff rates.
Oh, like how the more you use, the more expensive it gets.
Yes, exactly. Most electricity boards charge you more money per unit the more units you consume in a month. The first 100 units might be very cheap, heavily subsidized even, but if you consume 500 units, those top 100 units are billed at a premium, almost like a luxury rate.
Oh, I see. Because the solar panels are shaving off your total consumption, they are effectively erasing those top-tier, most expensive units first.
You nailed it. If your baseline usage without solar pushes you into that highest, most punitive tariff bracket, every single unit your solar panels generate is saving you a significant amount of money because you avoid paying that premium rate.
Wow. No.
So the 2 to 3 year payback mentioned in the summary table, that represents the highly optimized scenario. You got the cheap 1.8 lakh installation, you consume a lot of power in a high tariff bracket, and you maximize your savings instantly.
And the 3 to 5 year estimate is the more conservative average.
Exactly. It accounts for more expensive installations, lower tier electricity rates, and maybe less optimized consumption.
It is entirely tailored to your specific lifestyle and your roof's architecture.
That's fascinating. But, to achieve these magical 2 to 3 or even 3 to 5 year return on investment numbers, your system has to interact flawlessly with the city's power grid.
Yes, it does. And this brings us to a massive realization in the source document. When most people hear the phrase solar power, they picture going completely off the grid.
Yeah, the cabin in the woods fantasy.
Exactly. They imagine total independence, never dealing with a utility company or a billing department ever again. But this government scheme is entirely based on what is called an on-grid system. So if we are going to truly understand this deep dive, we have to understand what on-grid actually means, both structurally and technologically.
What's fascinating here is that this is the foundational crux of the entire PM Surya Ghar scheme. An on-grid system, which is also commonly referred to as a grid-tied system, does not sever your relationship with the local utility company at all.
Not even a little bit.
Not even slightly. Instead, it operates in complete real-time partnership with it. The physics of it are actually quite elegant. During the daylight hours, photons from the sun hit the silicon cells in your solar panels on the roof. This excites the electrons, creating a flow of direct current, or DC electricity.
Now, DC power is like water flowing steadily in one direction through a hose, right? It's what our batteries use, but it's not what our household appliances run on.
That's a great way to visualize it. Your home's electrical panel, your LED lights, your refrigerator, they all require alternating current or AC electricity.
Right.
In AC power, the electrons are constantly wiggling back and forth, changing direction dozens of times a second. The public grid in India operates at a frequency of 50 hertz, meaning that current alternates 50 times every single second.
Okay, so how does the DC from the roof become AC for the fridge?
So the DC electricity flowing down from your roof panels goes directly into the brain of your operation, which is the grid-tied inverter.
Ah, the inverter.
Right. The inverter's entire job is to take that steady DC stream and digitally chop it up, converting it into a perfectly synchronized AC wave that exactly matches the 50 hertz heartbeat of the city grid. That AC power then flows straight into your home's main distribution panel, instantly powering your appliances.
And the crucial part here, the thing that makes this entire financial model work for regular people, is that an on-grid system does not require batteries for its normal day-to-day operation.
Yeah, exactly.
You are not buying a massive, heavy, highly expensive bank of lithium-ion or lead-acid batteries to just sit in your garage and store power for the night.
The elimination of the battery bank is absolutely what makes rooftop solar economically viable for the masses. I mean, batteries are incredibly expensive.
They really are.
They require constant maintenance, they degrade over time no matter what you do, and they basically need to be completely replaced every 5 to 7 years.
That would destroy the payback period.
It would completely wreck it. By removing them from the equation entirely, you drastically lower the upfront installation costs, and you almost eliminate ongoing maintenance costs.
But wait, if I don't have batteries, what happens to the power my roof generates when I'm not home? Like if my panels are blasting out 3 kilowatts at noon, but the house is empty and only the refrigerator is running, where does all that extra electricity go? It can't just vanish into thin air.
Well, what's fascinating here is that the city grid itself acts as your battery.
The grid is the battery.
Yes, it becomes this invisible, infinite energy storage system. In a traditional off-grid setup, your surplus midday power would flow into a chemical battery in your garage. But in an on-grid system, the inverter senses that your house isn't using the power, and it literally pushes that surplus electricity backward out of your house, through your meter, and into the neighborhood electricity lines.
Oh.
You are actively exporting power to the city.
So I am essentially becoming a miniature power plant for Puducherry. My roof is generating the electricity that my neighbor, a few doors down, might be using to run their television.
You have hit on the exact terminology there. The energy industry calls this becoming a prosumer, an entity that is simultaneously a producer and a consumer of electricity.
A prosumer. I like that.
Yeah, and this entire relationship is managed and tracked by a really vital piece of hardware called a bidirectional net meter.
Okay, how does that differ from a normal meter?
Well, if you look at older homes, they usually have those traditional spinning disc meters. Those only know how to do one single thing: count the electricity flowing from the street into your house.
Yeah.
But a bidirectional digital net meter is sophisticated enough to read current flowing in both directions.
Makes sense.
It continuously logs the units you pull from the grid when you need them, and it separately logs the surplus units you push back into the grid when you overproduce.
You know, the document actually provides an energy estimation table that really brings this 3-kilowatt sizing to life.
Yeah, the appliance breakdown.
Right. It gives us a hypothetical daily breakdown of how a typical household consumes power, essentially proving why a 3-kilowatt system is the perfect fit. It lists standard appliances, right? So 4 lights running for 6 hours consumes about 0.9 units.
Barely anything.
Exactly. 4 ceiling fans running for 10 hours takes 3 units. A standard refrigerator actively cooling for 10 hours a day pulls 2.5 units. A television on for 5 hours is just half a unit. A washing machine for an hour is another half unit.
It all adds up slowly.
It does. And then there's the massive power draw, a 1.5-ton air conditioner running for just 4 hours at night.
Oh yeah, that's the big one.
That single appliance consumes 6 full units of electricity. So when you add all those daily activities up, it comes to exactly 13.4 units of electricity consumed per day by a normal family.
And if we look back at the expected generation metrics for a 3-kilowatt system in that Puducherry climate, the document stated it would reliably produce between 12 and 15 units a day.
It is an absolutely perfect mathematical alignment.
It really is. The government has sized this specific subsidy to seamlessly offset a very standard, comfortable, middle-class energy footprint.
I love thinking about this net metering concept, like a shared bank account with the local utility company.
That's a great analogy.
Right. You wake up, you go to work, and the sun rises.
Yeah.
All day long, your empty house is basically standing at the teller window making deposits. Your roof is depositing kilowatt hours into the utilities account. Then
Wow.
the sun goes down, you come home from work, you turn on the lights, you fire up the TV, and you turn on that super power-hungry AC.
And your panels are asleep.
Exactly. Your solar panels are asleep in the dark. They are generating absolutely nothing. So you start making withdrawals from that exact same bank account to power your evening. At the end of the 30-day billing cycle, the utility company doesn't care when you use the power. They just look at the net balance on the meter.
Yep.
Did you deposit more units of sunshine than you withdrew in the evenings, or did you withdraw more than you deposited? You are only financially responsible for the net difference.
It is a brilliant analogy, and it perfectly encapsulates the theoretical elegance of net metering. Because you are utilizing the vast existing infrastructure of the city grid as your personal energy bank, you avoid the massive capital expenditure of buying your own chemical batteries.
Which is huge.
It is. That singular fact is why the on-grid model is the structural backbone of this entire government subsidy. It is simply the most economical, scalable way to deploy renewable energy across millions of urban rooftops. It sacrifices the romantic ideal of absolute independence for extreme simplicity and massive tangible cost savings.
But relying on the city grid as your invisible infinite battery sounds like a completely flawless utopian system, right up until the moment that infinite battery suddenly breaks.
Ah, yes, the catch.
Which brings us right back to that terrifying scenario I mentioned at the very beginning of our deep dive. The biggest shock, the most massive caveat hidden in this source document, lies in its breakdown of the disadvantages of an on-grid system.
It's a bitter pill to swallow.
The absolute #1 issue is a technical concept called anti-islanding. I really need to put myself in the shoes of the outraged consumer here.
Go for it.
I have spent roughly 1 lakh rupees on this advanced system. The panels are bolted to my roof. It is a blisteringly hot, cloudless afternoon in Puducherry. The panels are practically vibrating with solar energy, and then a truck hits a pole down the street and the city power grid drops. You are telling me that even though the sun is blazing and my roof is fully operational, I am sitting in the dark.
Yeah.
My refrigerator turns off. My fans stop working. How is that not a massive, glaring design flaw in the equipment?
I completely understand the visceral frustration. I mean, it feels like a betrayal of the core promise of solar power.
It really does.
It is undeniably the single most counterintuitive aspect of owning an on-grid system. And honestly, it catches almost every new, uninformed solar owner completely off guard the first time they experience a daytime blackout.
I bet they're calling the installation company demanding a refund.
Oh, all the time. But to answer your question directly, yes, if the utility grid goes down, your state-of-the-art on-grid solar inverter will automatically, forcefully, and immediately shut itself down. You will have absolutely zero power in your house, even if the midday sun is shining directly on your panels.
It is infuriating. Why? I mean, if my roof is generating its own isolated power, why on earth does the system care if the city grid down the street is broken?
Because of a critical, globally mandated safety feature known as anti-islanding protection.
Anti-islanding. Okay.
To understand why this feature is absolutely non-negotiable, you have to shift your perspective away from your living room for a second and think about the utility workers. Okay, the linemen.
Right. When a transformer blows or a line snaps, causing a blackout in your neighborhood, the utility company immediately dispatches a crew of line workers to locate the fault and physically repair it. These men and women are climbing up poles, they're splicing wires, and handling massive high-voltage cables.
Dangerous work.
Incredibly dangerous. And their entire safety protocol relies on one fundamental assumption. Because the neighborhood grid is down, those wires are completely dead. They are safely de-energized and can be handled without risk of electrocution.
Okay, I think I see where this is going, and it sounds incredibly dangerous.
Now, imagine if your house, and say 10 other houses on your street with solar panels, didn't have this shut-off feature. Imagine your inverters just kept blindly pumping 240 volts of alternating current backward through your meter and into those supposedly dead street wires.
Oh my God.
Your localized cluster of homes would become an energized island of power generation amidst a sea of widespread blackout. Oh, wow. So my house would essentially be sending lethal voltage directly into the hands of the repair crew trying to fix the neighborhood's power lines.
It would be catastrophic. The electrical grid is an interconnected web. If power is flowing out of your house, it doesn't just stop at your meter. It travels down the neighborhood lines, it hits the local transformers, which can actually step that 240 volts up to thousands of volts, and it travels to the exact spot where a lineman might be holding a cable.
That is terrifying.
It is. Because of this fatal risk, international electrical safety standards dictate that every single grid-tied inverter must act like a hawk monitoring its prey. The inverter constantly measures the voltage and frequency of the grid. The absolute moment it detects a drop, meaning the grid has failed, the inverter is mechanically required to disconnect from your home's circuits and shut down entirely within a fraction of a second.
That fast.
Instantaneously. It is called anti-islanding because it actively prevents your home from forming a lethal, isolated island of live power.
You know, when you explain the physics and the human stakes like that, it ceases to be a design flaw and becomes an essential life-saving mechanism. I definitely can't argue with protecting the lives of the utility workers.
No one can, really.
But acknowledging that necessity doesn't change the fact that it represents a massive, sobering trade-off for the consumer.
Yeah.
You're being granted cheap, subsidized solar power precisely because you are willingly giving up the dream of true energy independence.
That was the deal you were making.
You are permanently tethering the functionality of your own expensive hardware to the overall health and stability of the local utility grid.
And this raises a highly critical question that every homeowner must ask themselves before opting into the PM Surya Ghar scheme. Exactly how reliable is your local grid infrastructure?
Right. If your power goes out every day.
Exactly. The document is surprisingly transparent about this limitation. It clearly states that an on-grid system is the most cost-effective, logical option for urban households that already enjoy a highly reliable electricity supply. But if you live in a district or a neighborhood plagued by frequent, prolonged daily power cuts, the value proposition of this entire scheme just plummets.
Because you can't use your own panels.
Right. Every single time the grid fails, your panels become useless glass paperweights on your roof. You generate nothing. You save nothing.
And reading closely, it isn't just full dramatic blackouts that cause problems, is it? The document explicitly mentions voltage fluctuations as a major disadvantage.
Yes, that's a huge one.
I get the blackout thing. But there's this weird part about voltage.
Yeah.
My lights flicker sometimes, but the power doesn't actually go out. The TV stays on. Is a simple flicker going to mess with a highly sophisticated solar system?
It is going to severely disrupt it, actually.
Really?
Yeah. To understand why, we need to think of grid voltage sort of like water pressure in a massive network of municipal pipes. Ideally, the utility company maintains a perfectly steady pressure. But let's say you live in an area with older, degraded infrastructure, or perhaps you live near a heavy industrial zone with massive factories. When those factories turn on giant motors or heavy welding equipment, they draw an immense amount of power, causing the pressure, the voltage in the entire neighborhood grid to momentarily sag or spike.
And your lights flicker because the pressure dropped for a second.
Yes, exactly. Now, your solar inverter is a highly sensitive, digitally controlled piece of power electronics. As we discussed, it is constantly monitoring the grid's heartbeat to ensure it can safely synchronize its AC wave and push power out.
Right.
Regulatory standards require the inverter to operate within a very tight, pre-programmed safety window for voltage and frequency. If that industrial factory turns on a machine and the grid voltage sags just below that strict safety threshold, even for a second, the inverter's computer assumes the grid is becoming dangerously unstable or is about to fail completely.
Yeah, so it panics.
Basically, yes. To protect its own internal circuitry and to prevent pushing bad power into the grid, the inverter triggers its protective disconnect.
So the power hasn't even gone out in the neighborhood. The grid is still alive. But because it's a little bit dirty or unstable, your highly advanced solar system just gives up and shuts down.
It safely isolates itself. And once it disconnects, it just sits idle. It waits, continuously monitoring the grid. It requires the voltage to remain perfectly stable within the safe window for a continuous block of time, often 5 full minutes, before it slowly ramps its power back up and cautiously reconnects.
5 minutes for a 1-second flicker.
Yes. And during those 5 or 10 minutes it was offline, your panels were generating 0 usable electricity. If you live on a highly unstable grid where voltage fluctuates constantly, your inverter might trip and reset 10 or 20 times a day.
You'd lose so much power.
You are bleeding generation efficiency, losing a significant chunk of your expected 12 to 15 daily units, simply because the city's power isn't clean enough for your hardware to interact with.
That is a staggering hidden cost that you will never see on a government billboard promoting this scheme.
Definitely not.
And speaking of hidden realities, the document lists out an extensive array of 14 separate disadvantages to an on-grid system. We've thoroughly covered the anti-islanding paradox and the voltage sensitivity, but there is also a massive issue surrounding stored energy, or rather, the administrative lack thereof.
Ah, the regulatory side.
Yes, the text spells out a specific regulatory scenario that honestly makes me question the whole bank account analogy we used earlier.
Let's hear it.
Let's say my 3-kilowatt system generates 12 units during a beautiful sunny day. My home is empty, and the fridge only consumes 5 units while I'm at work. So logically, I export the remaining 7 surplus units into the utility grid. Fantastic.
Perfect so far.
But then I come home at night, the sun is down, and I want those 7 units back to run my air conditioning. The document explicitly warns that I must purchase electricity back from the grid according to the utility's billing rules. Wait, hold on. I literally just gave them 7 units of pure energy a few hours ago. Why am I purchasing my own electricity back from them?
Because the utility grid isn't a charity, and it certainly isn't a perfect one-to-one piggy bank. This stark reality comes down to the complex specifics of local net metering policies.
Okay, so it's not always a one-for-one trade.
Exactly. The document rightly flags this as a significant ongoing regulatory risk. In a perfect, purely mathematical net metered world, 1 unit of energy exported equals 1 unit of energy imported, a seamless exchange. But utility companies are massive financial entities that have to maintain physical infrastructure, and they often utilize highly complex asymmetric tariff structures.
Asymmetric meaning they tilt it in their favor.
Often, yes. They might pay you a very low wholesale rate for the solar electricity you export during the midday hours when power is abundant, but then charge you a much higher retail rate to import electricity back into your home during the peak evening hours when everyone is cooking and running their AC.
Wait, are you saying the utility company can just change the exchange rate on my power whenever they want? So I might give them 7 units of midday sunshine, but financially they only credit my account with the equivalent value of, say, 4 units of evening power.
That is exactly the risk. Furthermore, utilities can impose fixed monthly capacity charges or banking limits where surplus units literally expire at the end of the financial year.
So they just wipe your account clean.
Yep. The document highlights this to warn consumers that these policies are subject to the whims of the government and the regulatory boards. You are locking yourself into a 25-year physical hardware investment based entirely on today's specific regulatory climate.
Which could change tomorrow.
Precisely. If the utility decides in 5 years that they suddenly have way too much midday solar power flooding the grid, they could simply petition the regulator to slash the export tariff they pay you. The moment they change that single line of code in their billing software, your carefully calculated 3-year payback period instantly stretches out to 6 or 7 years. It is a highly tangible, unavoidable regulatory risk.
And the risks aren't just administrative. There is a significant hardware risk buried in the text as well. We constantly hear about how solar panels are a 25 to 30-year investment.
And technically they are.
Right. They're essentially just specially treated rocks baked inside tempered glass. They degrade very slowly. But the inverter is a completely different story. The text makes it brutally clear. While your panels will last decades, the on-grid string inverter bolted to your wall has a typical lifespan of only 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, that's a harsh reality.
It is a highly stressed piece of electronic equipment, managing intense heat and continuous voltage conversion.
Right.
So right in the middle of your glorious 25-year financial projection, when you think you're just collecting pure savings, you have to budget for a massive, expensive, inevitable component replacement.
That is a critical point for realistic, long-term financial planning.
Yeah.
You simply cannot just look at the initial subsidized cost. You have to amortize the future cost of a replacement inverter into your 25-year savings calculation.
Right.
The initial 72,000 rupee investment is merely the price of admission to get in the door. While the day-to-day maintenance is incredibly low, the long-term hardware replacement cost is absolutely not zero.
And speaking of getting in the door, reading through this document makes you acutely aware that installing solar isn't like buying a new refrigerator where you just plug it into the wall and walk away.
Oh, absolutely not.
Having established that this system is inextricably tied to the local grid, bound by strict safety regulations, sensitive to voltage drops, and reliant on complex tariff rules, how does a homeowner actually go about building it? Because the 4th section of this document outlines a 16-step journey from a bare roof to a commissioned power plant. And honestly, it's exhausting just to read the list.
It is an exhaustive, rigorous, and highly regulated engineering project, and frankly, it should be.
Why do you say that?
Because you are modifying the structural integrity of your home's roof and permanently altering its electrical relationship with the public utility grid. The document estimates the physical installation process takes maybe 2 to 4 days of active labor, but the bureaucratic runway leading up to that first drill hole can take weeks or even months.
Weeks? Just for the paperwork?
Easily. To make this 16-step marathon digestible, I like to break it down into 3 distinct phases for people. Phase 1 is the bureaucracy, Phase 2 is the hardware installation, and Phase 3 is safety and commissioning.
Okay, let's walk through this journey together. Let's say I am a homeowner in Puducherry. I have read the math, I'm willing to accept the grid dependency, and I want my 1.08 lakh dual subsidy. What is Phase 1?
Phase 1 is entirely digital and administrative. You do not purchase a single wire or panel yet.
Okay.
Step 1 is registering yourself on the official national PM Surya Ghar digital portal. You will need your specific Puducherry electricity consumer number, your Aadhaar identity verification link to your mobile phone, and all the standard property tax and ownership documents.
Standard government stuff.
Right. You submit your digital application and then, well, you wait. You have to wait for the local electricity department to conduct a technical feasibility study. And this is where many projects die before they even begin.
Why would it die there?
Because the utility has to analyze the local distribution transformer on your specific street. They need to calculate if that aging piece of neighborhood infrastructure can safely handle an additional 3 kilowatts of reverse power being violently pushed back into it during peak sunlight.
Right, because if I live on a street where 5 of my neighbors have already installed solar systems, that neighborhood transformer might already be completely maxed out on the reverse capacity it can handle.
Exactly. If the transformer is saturated, your application is rejected until the utility decides to upgrade the neighborhood infrastructure, which, could take years.
Wow. Okay, so you need the grid to have capacity.
Yes. But assuming you do get the green light for technical feasibility, step 4 is selecting an approved vendor. This is a highly controlled market. To qualify for the subsidy money, you cannot simply hire your trusted local electrician or buy some cheap solar panels online.
So no DIY.
No DIY. You must select an installation vendor who is officially impaneled and registered under the PM Surya Ghar scheme. This vendor essentially becomes your general contractor and project manager. Once hired, they visit your home for step 5, the site survey. And this is where theoretical math crashes into the physical reality of your architecture.
I was actually looking at the checklist for the site survey in the document.
Yeah.
And it is intensely detailed. They aren't just glancing at the roof and saying, yeah, it looks good.
Not at all.
They are analyzing roof orientation, structural strength, and performing complex shadow analysis. The document explicitly mandates that you need 250 to 300 square feet of completely shade-free roof area. And it mentions the vendor using tools like digital inclinometers and specialized solar path tracking apps. I understand avoiding the shade of a tree, but what exactly are they measuring with a digital inclinometer in Puducherry?
They are hunting for the absolute optimized geometric angle to capture the sun's specific trajectory over your house. Puducherry is located at a very specific latitude on the globe. To maximize the annual energy yield and hit those 12 to 15 daily units, the panels cannot simply be laid perfectly flat on your concrete roof.
Why not? Just easier to mount them flat.
It might be easier, but if they are flat, they won't catch the angled winter sun, and more importantly, they won't naturally shed dust or allow the monsoon rain to wash them clean.
Self-cleaning.
Right. The document specifies a recommended tilt angle of 10 to 15 degrees specifically for the Puducherry region.
And the direction they face is critical too, right?
Absolutely crucial. Because India is in the northern hemisphere, the sun generally tracks across the southern portion of the sky throughout the year. Therefore, the panels must face true south to capture maximum irradiance.
So what if my roof faces north?
Well, if your roof architecture only allows panels to face north, or if you have a massive multi-story water tank that casts a long, slow shadow across the only south-facing portion of your roof from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., the vendor will have to give you bad news.
They'll cancel the project.
They'll run the Solar Path app, look at the 12-month projection, and tell you that a 3-kilowatt system on your specific roof will simply never generate the 12 to 15 units you need to achieve that 3-year payback. The site survey is the unforgiving moment where theoretical financial projections are bound by the physical constraints of your property.
So let's assume your roof passes the gauntlet. You have 300 square feet of pristine south-facing, shade-free concrete. We move into phase 2, the hardware installation. The text provides a typical bill of materials, and it is a massive pile of heavy industrial equipment.
It's a lot of metal.
We are talking about 6 massive 500-watt solar panels, the 3-kilowatt grid-tied inverter, heavy-gauge mounting structures, thick DC cables, AC cables, conduits.
The physical installation is heavy, precise, and structurally demanding work. Step 6 involves constructing and securing the mounting structure. We have to remember that 6 500-watt panels create a massive surface area.
Right.
If a strong monsoon storm rolls through Puducherry, those panels act like a giant sail trying to literally rip themselves off your house.
That's a terrifying image.
So the vendor has to mark exact foundation points, drill deep anchor holes into your reinforced concrete roof, fix heavy-duty chemical anchor bolts, and assemble a rigid skeleton made of galvanized iron or aluminum. It has to withstand decades of high winds and corrosive coastal air.
And once that's secure,
Once the skeleton is bolted down, step 7 involves carefully hoisting the 6 delicate, heavy panels onto the structure and rigidly securing them.
it's a major construction project. And once the panels are bolted to the skeleton, we transition into phase 3, which is where the document gets highly technical and, frankly, a bit intimidating. The safety and commissioning phase.
This is the most important part.
Steps 8 through 12 are entirely focused on complex wiring and heavy-duty electrical protection. We are talking about installing DC combiner boxes, DC isolator switches, DC surge protection devices, AC isolators, AC surge protection devices. It is an absolute alphabet soup of heavy-duty safety switches.
It sounds like overkill, but it's not.
But the part of this phase that absolutely fascinated me and honestly confused me a bit is step 11, earthing.
Ah, yes. The grounding.
The text explicitly mandates the installation of 3 completely separate independent earth pits in your yard. It specifies Earth Pit 1 is exclusively for the solar panel metal frames, Earth Pit 2 is exclusively for the inverter, and Earth Pit 3 is exclusively for the lightning arrestor. Why do I need to dig 3 separate trenches? It sounds like I am burying treasure all over my backyard.
Yeah.
Why can't I just take one thick copper wire, tie everything to it, and drive one big spike into the ground?
Well, if we connect this specific requirement to the bigger picture, we see the uncompromising influence of the Central Electricity Authority, the CEA, and their incredibly strict national safety regulations.
Okay.
Earthing, or grounding as it's sometimes called, is the ultimate non-negotiable safety valve for any electrical system. The physical earth has a massive capacity to absorb stray electrical current. If a wire frays due to wind or maybe rats chewing on it, and the bare copper touches the metal frame of your solar panel, that entire metal structure becomes live.
Yikes.
Without earthing, the next time you go up to clean the panels, the electricity will travel through your body to reach the ground, which is fatal. With proper earthing, the electricity takes the path of least resistance down the dedicated copper wire and safely into the earth pit.
Okay, I understand the basic concept of grounding. That explains why I need one earth pit. But why 3 completely independent ones? That seems crazy.
Because you are dealing with 3 fundamentally different, highly volatile types of electrical risks converging on your roof, and they absolutely cannot be allowed to interact.
Okay, break that down for me.
Let's look at them. The solar panels themselves are generating pure DC power, and they are bolted to a massive, highly conductive metal skeleton. That is one distinct floating electrical system that needs to be grounded in case a DC cable frays. That is earth pit number 1.
Got it. Panel pit.
Now, think about the inverter. The inverter is the highly sensitive electronic junction box where that raw DC power physically meets the high-voltage AC power from the city grid. The inverter can experience internal short circuits, or it can be hit by massive AC voltage surges traveling from the city grid into your house.
Which is a totally different kind of power.
Exactly. That is a completely different fault path. You absolutely do not want a massive AC fault from the city grid traveling backward up a shared grounding wire and energizing the metal frames of your solar panels while someone is touching them.
Oh, wow. So it would travel up the shared wire.
Yes. Therefore, the inverter gets its own isolated, dedicated path to the ground. Earth pit number 2.
Ah, okay. You are deliberately keeping the different fault paths physically isolated, so a failure in one system doesn't turn the other system into a death trap. That makes perfect sense. What about the third pit?
The third earth pit is for step 12, lightning protection. You have just installed a massive, highly conductive metal array at the highest possible point of your property. You've essentially built a lightning rod.
I never thought of it like that.
The lightning arrestor is a specialized copper or aluminum spike mounted higher than the panels. Now, if lightning actually strikes that spike, You are dealing with millions of volts and tens of thousands of amps of atmospheric static energy discharging in a fraction of a millisecond. If you were foolish enough to tie the lightning arrestor to the same earth pit as your sensitive computerized inverter, the sheer back voltage from a lightning strike would instantly obliterate the inverter's electronics and likely cause a massive electrical fire inside your home.
So the lightning would basically explode the inverter from underneath.
Exactly. The lightning arrestor absolutely must have its own dedicated, heavy-duty, heavily insulated path straight into the deep earth to dissipate that massive atmospheric energy safely away from your home's delicate electrical systems. Earth pit number 3. It is an uncompromising, mathematically calculated safety standard.
That is incredible. The level of sheer engineering and safety protocols going into a standard residential roof is profound. So let's say the heavy hardware is bolted down, the 3 independent treasure chests of earthing are buried in the yard, and everything is safely wired through a dozen isolator switches. Then we hit step 13.
Testing.
Yep, the moment of truth. The vendor checks the open circuit voltage, confirms the string polarity, and rigorously tests that anti-islanding function to make sure it shuts off instantly when disconnected from the grid. And finally, we reach the agonizing conclusion, steps 14, 15, and 16.
More bureaucracy.
So much more. This involves inviting the local electricity department back to your house for a final inspection. They scrutinize everything, they officially install the bi-directional net meter, they approve the delicate grid synchronization, and then you have to gather all these signed commissioning reports and upload them back to the National Digital Portal to finally, eventually, get your subsidy money credited directly to your bank account.
It is a monumental effort, and the reality is, even after all of that bureaucracy, construction, and inspection, your job as the homeowner isn't actually done.
Wait, there's more.
The document clearly lays out an ongoing maintenance schedule. You are committing to climbing up to your roof and physically cleaning those glass panels with soft water and a non-abrasive cloth every 15 to 30 days.
Every month.
Yes. Because, as the disadvantages section explicitly noted, heavy dust, bird droppings, or pollution accumulation directly blocks the photons and significantly lowers your daily energy output. And that, in turn, destroys your financial payback model. You are no longer just a homeowner paying a bill. You are now the active facility manager of a micropower plant.
So what does this all mean? Let's take a step back and look at the whole picture. We have gone through the massive allure of the 1.08 lakh dual subsidy, the sheer brilliance of net metering acting as an infinite battery, the rude and sudden awakening of grid dependency during a blackout, and this exhausting 16-step construction and bureaucratic marathon.
It's a lot to take in.
You have to climb your roof to clean the panels twice a month. You have to budget to buy a brand new inverter in 12 years. You have to pray the local utility regulator doesn't suddenly change their net metering billing rules, and you have to bury 3 separate lightning rods in your yard. How should an average consumer psychologically justify this massive, stressful undertaking?
That's the real question, isn't it?
Because honestly, it is an incredible amount of work, risk, and upfront capital just to lower a monthly utility bill. And this brings us to Section 5 of our source document, which contains what is arguably one of the most fascinating, provocative philosophical arguments for renewable energy I have ever read in a government text.
Oh, the car analogy. I love this part.
Yes, it attempts to reframe the entire financial mindset of the consumer by comparing the purchase of a solar system to the purchase of a small hatchback car.
It is a truly brilliant, highly effective analogy because it attacks the psychological hurdle of upfront costs head-on. As a species, human beings are notoriously bad at evaluating long-term financial mathematics when there is a large, intimidating initial price tag attached.
We just see the big number and panic.
Exactly. The document smartly points out that middle-class Indian households routinely and, quite happily, finance the purchase of a small family car for 6 to 8 lakh rupees. Let's use 7 lakh as an average. Families will eagerly take out a high-interest bank loan, pay the down payment, and buy that car without losing sleep.
Sure, it's a status symbol.
Yet these exact same households will agonize, hesitate, and often reject the idea of making a 72,000 rupee net investment for a rooftop solar system, viewing it as too expensive.
Right. And the document brutally dissects the actual financial reality of owning that 7 lakh car. It points out that a car is the ultimate depreciating asset. The literal second you drive it off the dealer's lot, it loses a massive percentage of its resale value.
Depreciates instantly.
It has a functional, useful life of maybe 10 to 15 years before it starts breaking down constantly. And crucially, It incurs massive, unavoidable, ongoing monthly expenses. You have to buy fuel, you have to pay annual insurance premiums, you have to replace tires, pay for oil changes, and handle repairs.
It never ends.
The document estimates that an average family spends between 40,000 and 1,000 rupees a year just to keep that depreciating asset running. The financial return on investment of a car is fundamentally overwhelmingly negative. It is a continuous money pit.
Conversely, the document forces you to look at the solar system. It costs a tiny fraction of the car's price, just 72,000 rupees after the Puducherry dual subsidy. And it is a powerful cost-saving asset. It has a guaranteed useful life of 25 to 30 years.
With very low running costs.
Practically negligible, mostly just water for cleaning. Instead of demanding cash from your wallet every single month for fuel, it actively reduces your existing monthly household expenses by 2,500 to 3,500 rupees. Its return on investment is overwhelmingly positive, fully paying for its own existence in 2 to 3 years, and then generating pure, unadulterated financial savings for the next 2 decades.
The specific analogy the text uses to cement this concept in the reader's mind is just fantastic. It says that buying a solar system is like buying a cow.
A cow?
Yes, a cow. A cow gives milk every single day, provides an ongoing, tangible, life-sustaining benefit that enriches the household. Buying a car, on the other hand, is like buying a motorcycle. It provides convenience, sure, but it requires you to feed it expensive fuel every single day just to make it work. It demands continuous, relentless spending.
It perfectly illustrates the fundamental difference between an infrastructure investment and a lifestyle expense. The cow versus the motorcycle. The solar system is an infrastructure investment that structurally, permanently alters the baseline cash flow of your household.
That's a great way to put it.
Over its 25-year lifespan, the document estimates that initial 72,000 rupee investment will yield an astonishing 10 to 12 lakh rupees in absolute cumulative savings. Mathematically, it is one of the highest yield, lowest risk financial products a homeowner could ever possibly acquire.
But I want to push back on this just a little bit, playing devil's advocate for the consumer. Are we really just bad at math, or is the document ignoring human nature?
How do you mean?
Because the text acknowledges that a car provides vital transportation, family mobility, and undeniable convenience. It improves your lifestyle in a very visceral, immediate, emotional way. You can drive your kids to the beach on a Sunday. You can take your family on a road trip to visit relatives.
That's true.
A solar system just sits on your roof, silently baking in the sun, and the only tangible lifestyle improvement is a slightly smaller number printed on a piece of paper that arrives in the mail at the end of the month. It completely lacks the emotional dopamine hit of buying a new car. You can't show off a lower electricity bill to your neighbors the way you can show off a shiny new hatchback in your driveway.
You are absolutely right, and to its credit, the document subtly concedes this point. If your immediate family goal is mobility, convenience, or social status, a car provides immense subjective value that cannot be measured purely in cold financial returns.
Right.
But the text isn't actually trying to talk you out of buying a car. It is trying to fundamentally reframe how you view household capital allocation. It is arguing that a solar system shouldn't be compared to a consumer good at all. It should be viewed as foundational household infrastructure, like plumbing or insulation.
Oh, I see.
In fact, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the truly smart financial move isn't choosing between the solar system and the car. It is recognizing the synergy. The solar system actually funds the car.
Wait, really? Explain that.
By investing that 72,000 rupees up front, you permanently free up, say, 35,000 rupees a year in cash flow that was previously trapped by the utility company. That newly freed 35,000 rupees is the exact money you can use to pay for the car's fuel, its insurance, and its maintenance. The cow actively pays to feed the motorcycle.
That is a phenomenal, empowering way to look at it. The cow pays to feed the motorcycle. By undertaking this project and permanently lowering your baseline operating costs, you unlock the trapped capital necessary for those emotional lifestyle improvements. And that requires a massive paradigm shift in how we view the physical structures we live in. We have to stop viewing our homes purely as places where we blindly consume resources and start viewing them as active assets that can generate resources and wealth.
Exactly. It requires us to stop viewing the roof merely as a structural lid designed to keep the monsoon rain out of the living room and start viewing it as a 300-square-foot piece of highly valuable, prime, energy-producing real estate.
It's an asset.
It is. The PM Surya Ghar scheme, with its incredibly aggressive central and Puducherry state subsidies, is essentially a government offer to pay for the vast majority of the heavy construction costs required to build a lucrative micropower plant on your unused real estate.
It is an incredible financial opportunity. But as we've deeply explored today, it demands a highly informed, clear-eyed consumer. You cannot go into this blindly.
Definitely not.
You have to understand and accept the frustrating reality of on-grid anti-islanding and daytime blackouts. You have to respect the rigorous, heavily regulated 16-step engineering and safety. Oh, this is the grid saturation issue, isn't it?
Yes. The entire premise of on-grid solar relies implicitly on the city grid functioning as an infinite, perfectly accommodating battery, eagerly accepting your surplus power whenever you want to dump it. But imagine a realistic future, perhaps just 5 or 10 years from now, where this subsidy scheme is wildly, historically successful. Imagine entire sprawling neighborhoods, street after street in Puducherry, where every single suitable roof has a 3-kilowatt system installed on it.
Okay, I am picturing it. A massive, glittering sea of blue silicon panels stretching across the entire city skyline.
Now imagine it is 1:00 p.m. on a Tuesday in the middle of May. The sun is directly overhead, beating down at maximum intensity. It is a perfect cloudless day. Every single 3-kilowatt system in that massive neighborhood is generating its absolute peak maximum power simultaneously. But because it is a Tuesday afternoon, the vast majority of people are away at work or school. The neighborhood's actual physical power consumption is at its absolute lowest point of the entire day. So you have thousands upon thousands of homes simultaneously trying to export massive amounts of surplus high-voltage energy backward into the aging local grid at the exact same millisecond.
Yeah.
They are all desperately trying to make massive deposits into the utility's bank account at once.
Oh, wow. It's a traffic jam of electricity.
Precisely. Can the aging local distribution transformers, the neighborhood copper lines, the physical legacy infrastructure of the city grid actually handle that massive, unprecedented, simultaneous influx of reverse power?
Probably not.
The physics are brutal. If too much power is forced into a grid with no one consuming it, the voltage in the entire system violently spikes.
And what did we learn about grid-tied inverters and voltage spikes?
The moment the voltage spikes outside the safety window, every single inverter on the street will sense the overvoltage and simultaneously automatically shut down to protect itself. Exactly. You would have millions of rupees of highly subsidized, state-of-the-art hardware sitting completely idle in the blazing sun, generating absolutely nothing, simply because the city's grid is completely full and physically cannot absorb another drop of energy.
That is mind-blowing.
The fundamental existential question for the future of renewable energy becomes, when everyone on the street is heavily subsidized to become a producer of electricity, who is left to actually be the consumer?
That is a terrifying and absolutely fascinating logistical cliff we are racing toward. The legacy power grid was built a century ago as a one-way street. Massive power plants sending energy down to passive homes. It was never designed to be a chaotic two-way street of that magnitude.
Not at all.
It just goes to show that while solving the household electricity bill is a massive, empowering individual victory, scaling that victory up across millions of homes creates an entirely new set of monumental, perhaps unprecedented engineering and physics challenges for the city itself.
Indeed it does. It forces the lumbering utility companies to rapidly evolve from just being passive suppliers of bulk power to being highly active, incredibly sophisticated digital traffic controllers attempting to balance millions of tiny, decentralized, highly volatile power plants in real time. The rooftop solar revolution is not the end of the energy transition story. It is merely the chaotic, fascinating beginning.
Well, that is definitely a heavy thought to mull over the next time you step out of your front door and look up at your empty roof, or the next time you open that dreaded envelope and stare down a massive electricity bill. The path to a $0 bill is incredibly lucrative, but it is paved with bidirectional meters, strict voltage safety limits, 3 separate copper earth pits buried in the yard, and the unyielding complex realities of grid physics. Thank you for joining us as we unpack the granular realities of the PM Surya Ghar scheme in Puducherry. Keep questioning the systems and the world around you, and we will see you on the next deep dive.